Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Symbio here with T3 Gaming. We have another episode today of Meta Mechanics. I'm going to go through the brand new 2017 HeroClix Rules that have been released, and specifically this episode we're going to talk about the Powers and Abilities card. I'm really excited about this new rules update. I think it's a great way for new players to get into the game. I also like the way that they've cleaned up a lot of the wording in HeroClix and made it a lot more straightforward, especially the way actions happen and the sequence of actions. So hopefully this will inspire newer and more players to join this awesome game. If you want to keep up with the new rules, I would definitely recommend Tabletop Teacher on YouTube, their channel. They're doing a great job. They get a lot of the rules and the WizKids product as a pre-release, so you should check that out. He's got a great Powers and Abilities card review. Today I'm just gonna take the time to kind of go through this for my own purposes and also hopefully to help some of you guys learn these new rules, specifically for probably more experienced players who want to see what the changes are. If you're a newer player, definitely check out Tabletop Teacher. He's gonna basically be making videos for every single one of these powers and do some tutorials for you to learn how to play. So we're going to go through just mainly what I noticed were the biggest changes as much as I can. Apologize for any mistakes. I'm still learning this. Definitely in the comments section below, let me know what I missed and what you think is interesting, and we could definitely have more of a discussion there. So we're going to go through the Powers and Abilities card here, starting with the Speed powers. We're going to look at Earthbound Neutralized. So this has been simplified. Prior to this, it said give this character a move this character possesses standard foot, standard attack, no in-dom defense, and standard damage symbol instead of its combat symbols. Power can't be countered or ignored. And the new wording is basically saying this character can't use improved movement or improved targeting abilities. So it cuts out all of the improved movement and targeting abilities, which is a much, I guess, more restricted abilities than it was before, and then also, of course, can't use willpower. So this doesn't say anything about giant size, although giant size gives you those improved movement and certain improved targeting abilities, so you basically nerfs all that. Alright, next we're going to move into mind control, and mind control has been simplified now so that really you can't mind control a character and do any special things like hypersonic speed or activate any of their powers. Now when you do a mind control, you're basically, after you hit the character, you half that character's speed, they become friendly to your force, and you may either move and or make an attack. Then it reverts forces. So very simple way of getting your opponents to attack for you. It's pretty cool that you can actually move and attack in different order. So previously, like with charge, you'd still have to move and attack, but in this situation you can actually attack first and then move and run, or get them further away from you if you want. Alright, moving back down here, we've got sidestep. There's not really much of a change here. It's still 2 squares, but getting rid of the locked terminology here is just saying move up to 2 squares. It also gets rid of the whole corner case scenario where you're dealing with combat values, and previously, before, it said give the character a free action, it can move with a locked speed value of 2. It's no longer a speed value, it's just 2 squares. So this should hopefully clean up some of that messiness that would come into play when combat values can't be modified or changed. There's not that many people who can do that anymore, but if you're like outsiders somebody and they get a free sidestep, it doesn't mean they get to move their full movement. Alright, next is hypersonic speed. Hypersonic speed definitely got a nerfing here. First off, you cannot carry. So what they did is they separated inherent ability, which is a basic carry ability, which allows you to carry one smaller sized adjacent character, and the new carry basically says you get a -1, and so at this point now it's -1 for any character you carry, and you keep minusing depending on how many characters you carry. So even if you have like the Green Lantern team ability, if you're carrying 8 people, I assume it's just a -3 because of the rule of 3. But they're separate abilities. The basic carry ability allows you to carry one smaller, and then if you have other things like flight, or giant no, I guess just flight, or a vehicle, you'd have a passenger symbol, and that may give you the ability to carry. So if you're using hypersonic speed, you can no longer carry a standard size character. Now, I'm pretty sure you can still use the inherent ability to carry one smaller size character. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the passenger symbol replaces basic inherent carry ability. So anyway, you're still halving your range, allows you to move through characters, and then you get to make an attack, then move up to your speed value minus the number of squares you just moved after the attack. So they're kind of two separate movements now, which is cool because actually, and again, I might be wrong about this, but if you carry Henry in your hypersonic speed, I think you would still get the empower or enhancement in this situation because it's two separate attacks. Prior to this, you couldn't carry somebody and get that. But again, if you can't carry anybody, even smaller characters with hypersonic, then that wouldn't happen either. So let me know if you guys find some ruling on that. I still am a little unclear whether passenger counts for inherent carry. All right, so let's go ahead and move into the attack powers here. You can see they got rid of the duo fist, the team base, and I think, what else did they get rid of? Oh yeah, they also, if you take a look back here at the speed abilities, they basically got rid of all the transporter stuff. Now you just have dolphin, flight, and I'm not sure what this dash is, and then the foot symbol. So in the attack, we've lost the duo fist, the sharpshooter, and the team base, which makes sense because they're cleaning up and simplifying the game here. All right, so blades, claws, and fangs. This is mostly the same. You have to activate it still during a close action, and then you roll a die 6 still. And what's cool about this is now the minimum result is the character's printed damage value -1. So now, if you have blades, you don't have to worry usually about doing just 1 damage. Now, some people with blades do just have 1, in which case that would be a 0, and you wouldn't want to do it. But a lot of them have 2 or 3, in which case this would, be a little bit of a bump. All right, energy explosion got a major nerf. Now it's a ranged, what they call a ranged action, and so before it activated when a ranged attack was hit. So there's no penetrating psychic blast with energy explosion anymore. And also, when you make a ranged attack, all other characters adjacent to the original target also become targets. So that does affect certain things of the game. In which case, if a character is targeted, they might have some kind of trigger effect. Now, the biggest nerf here is that now hit characters are dealt 2 damage instead of normal damage. So that means if you target a single character and then there are 3 characters beside him or her, that would be 2 damage to each of them. You don't get to assign your normal damage to the original hit character anymore. It's just 2 damage to that character. And it's not penetrating anymore. So energy explosion is not nearly as strong. Which is kind of sad because it's one of my favorite powers. I know a lot of people love this power, but it does kind of help it so that you can't do so much damage to a little group of figures. The other thing that, of course, is different is that no longer do the number of targeted bolts affect the number of damage the amount of damage that the adjacent targets take. All right, Pulse Wave. We were wondering a little bit about what Pulse Wave would do in the new rules, and there are some changes here. Most of it is really just the same. And what's interesting is that they worded this very cleanly. Other characters within range can't use powers or abilities for this action. Now, just to clarify, traits are also abilities, so they won't also get the traits or any powers for that action if they're in that range. Makes ranged combat attack, and of course, and the other thing that's changed here is that you're using the printed defense values. Now, before it just said, like energy shield deflection would give you a +2, and you ignore that power before. But in this case, it's just saying you're just going to use their printed defense values, which means that you can't perplex somebody down outside of your range for their defense values and then pulse wave and get that -1 defense on the target. In this case, you're going to just use the printed defense values. So it kind of evens it out a little bit and makes pulse wave a little less strong. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. All right, moving into Quake. Now, the big change here is that it's a close action. I think before. Oh, it's still a close combat action. Okay, so that doesn't matter. But what does matter is that if you do Quake against a single target, then you get to do your normal damage. But if you are hitting more than one target here, if more than one target is hit, then each character is dealt 2. So that was the whole lock damage of 2 instead of normal damage. So that's pretty cool. Before, if you wanted to try to Quake and knock somebody back, you know, you'd only be doing 2, and usually like you got heavy hitters like Hulk who are doing 4, and you don't even want to bother doing that. So this allows you to do the normal damage and knockback. Knockback has gotten a huge bump in the new rules, which is exciting because it's one of the most thematic powers of the game, and I love knockback. Everybody loves being able to knock people back into walls and off buildings and through walls and that kind of stuff. So next is super strength. So they gave knockback to super strength, which is very thematic. I love this. And basically, if you have super strength during close attacks, you get knockback. So no longer can you hypersonic and super strength, because hypersonic just allows you to make a close down here makes a close or ranged attack. Basically, I figured it out. It's because they created these new actions called close object attack and range object attack, and you cannot use hypersonic with either of those type of actions. So that's why you don't get hypersonic super strength anymore, but you do get the knockback. And the super strength characters can pick up heavy objects. No more ultra heavies though, so to be clear about that. All right, moving into Smoke Cloud, pretty much the same power here, still minimum value of 4. The one big difference here is that opposing characters occupying a mark or modify attack -1. Now prior to this, if you could use Smoke Cloud, you wouldn't get that -1, or if they ignore hindering terrain, but now you get a -1 regardless. So I think that gives Smoke Cloud actually a little bit of a bump, because then it really modifies everybody's attack values regardless of whether they have special abilities. The other thing this does is that at the beginning of your next turn, even if the power is lost, then you remove them. So that means Smoke Cloud, and we'll go into this a little later, but Barrier will both stay regardless of if you lose the power, whether it's countered or outwitted, or if your dial got clicked. So that makes somebody like Green Lantern, the SR Green Lantern from Joker's Wild even stronger, and it makes some of the free Smoke Cloud characters stronger too. So going into Precision Strike got kind of I would say a little bit of a nerf, because before it would basically ignore super senses, but now only when this character targets a single character, damage taken from the attack can't be reduced below 1. So you can't triple target with Precision Strike anymore to do 1 damage to everybody. And then also the target decreases its D6 roll for super senses by -1. So instead of it prior to this being we'll read it out. It said when this character makes an attack, it can't be evaded. So now it can be evaded, but they -1 to their super senses roll. All right, and then if we go to Poison definitely got sort of a nerf here. It is a free action, and because of the new action phasing, you can't sidestep and then poison anymore. The reason here is also because it says if this character hasn't been moved or been placed this turn. So no TK poison, no sidestep poison, no movement poison in whatsoever. And then deal 1 damage to all adjacent opposing characters. So pretty straightforward. I feel like it nerfs poison guys, because usually if they have to get close to somebody ahead of time, they're usually going to get hit off that poison somehow. So it's pretty sad, because poison was already not that great. But this does allow you to take to outwit and then poison, as long as the character hasn't been moved or placed. So it does allow you to do that. All right, TK got a surprise nerfing here. Now it is a minimum range value of 6. Before it was an 8 range, and now it's a minimum range value of 6, regardless of if you're going to throw an object, or whether you're going to TK a single a character, or opposing character, or a friendly character. The other thing that this says here is it says this character must be within 6 squares in line of fire from the target's current square. So there is no more super alpha striking, at least -2. It was 8 before, now it's 6. So if you wanted to try to TK out of the starting area, you still have to be 6 squares from the target square. So even if you have a 10 range TK, it doesn't matter. The target square is still a maximum of 6. It has to be within 6 squares. So even if you have a great TKer here, with a large range, you're not going to be able to be as alpha strikey here, which I think in the ultimate way the game's played, they're slowing down the game. They're trying to reduce huge amounts of damage and KOing one character in some ways. I think that's good for the game. They're bringing it a little bit closer, so I think that will help, so that, you know, it makes it, of course, harder to build really aggro teams, but I think in the end that's good. But it does boost characters like Shredders, you know, because it's harder to take them out. All right, I think that's mostly it for TK. There are some changes to the wording about how you attack with an object, but other than that, it's pretty much stays the same. So let's go ahead and move up here to defense powers. So the defense powers, you know, none of the symbols really change here. Most of these other ones don't change. Barrier, like I mentioned, now lasts at the beginning until the beginning of your next turn, even if it's lost. So prior to this, if you countered Outwit, the barrier would come down. Now it no longer happens. So that even if the character's KO'd, the barrier stays up until the beginning of your next turn. At least as far as I understand this wording here. It's possible that I may be wrong, so, you know, if that's the case, let me know. All right, Mastermind gets a little bit of a boost. One element that's really important is that now you can mastermind to characters that just share a keyword regardless of points. So you can mastermind to some really heavy, you know, 10-click figure if you want to, even if they're more points than you. Before, it had to be less points. Also, you can't mastermind to a character that's also a target of that attack. So if somebody energy explodes you, and you're the mastermind character, and you have characters adjacent, if they're also hit by the attack, you cannot mastermind that. So that's a new thing too. Now, one minor change is that the character instead becomes a hit target of the attack. I think before it was just kind of like an area of effect, but now they actually become a target, and it even has here that even if it's already a target or would be an illegal target, this might be some room for some strange shenanigans, and does have some weird effects for certain characters. So, you know, if we find out about those, we'll let you know. And let me know if you have something that comes out immediately as to how that would work. All right, going into Invincible here, it reduces damage taken by 2. So instead of it halving the damage and ignoring it, it is now a reducer. But the special thing here is it can reduce penetrating damage. So still, you know, Exploit and Penside don't get through it. It makes it so that if they do 2 damage, you don't take any now, which is great, because I always felt like that was one of the dumb things about Invincible. I thought Invincible was truly invincible, and hello, a 2 damage character can now do 1 to me. That was dumb. So I think this was a great change. And also, even if you're doing like 8 damage or something, like 6 printed with a heavy, you only take a maximum of 3 damage. So that's great. I think this is a perfect rewrite of Invincible. All right, going down into Regen here. Regen got a little bit of a nerf. Heal a number of clicks equal to half the result rounded up. So before it was just subtract 2, minimum result 0. Now it's half the result rounded up. So you can never heal 4. Maximum you can heal is 3. But if you, I think this also has a minimum. Yeah, so this would be a minimum of 1 because it's half the rounded up. So actually, I wouldn't say it got nerfed. It just got a little bit of a balancing here. So you can't heal as much, but you always get 1. So that's pretty cool. Everybody knows how terrible it is to give an action, regen, and not get any healing. But, you know, healing 1 is better than none, right? Okay, so let's go into the damage powers here. Moving into, let's see, yep, support. Let's go into support. This is mostly the same. You still, one of the things that previously support used was, I think, unmodified defense value, and now you can actually perplex that defense down, and you can also perplex the character's attack, that kind of stuff. So you can get a higher attack and a lower defense if you need to, which wasn't the case before. And also the minimum is 2, which is awesome. So support gets even better. Playing some kind of a healer on your team is huge now, because being able to get a minimum of 2 is great, instead of being a minimum of 1. All right, I'm moving into probability control here. Prob definitely got a nerf. Now you can only prob 2 things: a character's attack roll and their breakaway roll. So no more blades, no more regen, no more support. So it makes it a little harder to get that Jakeem regen off if you need it, which is probably good for helping to balance this game. All right, I think that was it for that one. Moving down here into Perplex. This is all pretty much the same. The only difference is that before, Perplex made it so that if the target, let's see, before, basically, if the character took any damage or the character is healed, and so if you click the dial at all after a Perplex, they would lose the Perplex. Now, if it just lasts until your next turn. So if you perplex a separate character's defense and then they get hit once, they still get that perplex, so that if the opposing character is going to hit them again, they get that +1 defense or +2 defense, depending on how much perplex you got. So that's pretty cool. Same thing with flurry. Like if somebody, flurry is a good example. If you perplex somebody's flurry attack from an 11 to a 12, they flurry and maybe they take a mystics or something, they don't lose the perplex, so they'll keep the perplex and they'll be able to hit them again the next turn. All right, outwit is one of the biggest changes, and I'm going to be doing a separate video on that, kind of outlining some of the characters that might work great with this new outwit. Now outwit, of course, you can choose a power, standard or special, regardless of whether it's on the dial, where they get the power. They don't even have to have the power, guys. So you can choose any power, standard or special. You just say the power. I'm going to outwit. I'm going to choose invincible. They don't even have to have it yet, and until your next turn, they can't use that power. So this is a very powerful change to the game, being able to outwit anything as long as you can still target them. All right, leadership. This we've also probably, you guys have already heard about this. Basically, if any character on your team has leadership at the beginning of your turn, they get an action total +1. At first, when I looked at this, I thought that because they removed the entire unique modifier here, that you could use it for all the characters. It says at the beginning of your turn for all characters that can use this power. But thanks to Jason Collins on Facebook, it pointed out that actually for all characters means that no matter how many leadership characters you have, you just get an action total +1. So thank goodness that's the case, because if it wasn't, then you'd be able to get action stacking like crazy. So no matter what, no matter how many characters you have, it's only +1 leadership, +1 action to your total. Another thing that they added was the ability, if you have leadership, you still roll a 5 through 6, remove an action token from adjacent friendly character that's less points or now shares a keyword. So I think that's great. Definitely gives you the ability to remove a token from somebody that's more points from you, but still shares a keyword, and very thematic. So really like that. Now finally, Shredder Clone gets to remove an action token from Mini Shredder. All right, let's go ahead and move down here into the inherent abilities. We will definitely look into the leadership thing. Let me know in the comments if you found some ruling or mention of the unique modifier. I'll have to check some of the other documents here if that's the case. All right, so one of the biggest things here is they cleaned up the terminology for inherent move actions. So anywhere you see move, close, or range in the powers. And actually, let's go back up here and look real quick. One of the hardest things for newer players was understanding what was a close combat attack, power action, that kind of thing. And I love how they capitalize everything here. Close and range, power action, free, power. You can just really quickly see what you can do. Like if you give a power action, then you get a range at no cost. So anything that's a range in here you can do. Same thing with like charge, power action, move, then close at no cost. Anything that's close you get to do. So it's really a nice clean way of organizing it. So going into carry here, the inherent ability is that you may choose one adjacent friendly character of smaller size that isn't a vehicle. So they have to be a smaller size to get the inherent carry. If you do, for the move, you modify -1 for each character chosen. So if you carry a tiny character, you have to -1 now. Before it was you got it for free, now it's a -1. The other thing here is that you have to be able to place the character adjacent afterwards. They're no longer like off the map. Essentially, you move the character and then you place the carried character adjacent into a legal square. The other thing here that they changed is that to carry, neither character can be holding an object or pick one up. So this is also a big change. You can't have Superman with a heavy object also carry a smaller character when he's charging. He has to either charge with the heavy object or and he can't actually drop the object in the carry either. So this makes taxis a little bit more limited in that they're really mostly going to just be taxiing. But we'll see what happens. Maybe there are other loopholes here that you can do to make to allow the carry character to get some more damage values here. So all right, they also created these separate actions, which I think are more confusing in some ways. You have to use a close destroy action. So notice that these are a little bit different than just doing a close attack. So if you're going to destroy a wall of blocking terrain with a close or ranged attack, you have to use close destroy action and range destroy action. You can still charge and running shot, but you cannot hypersonic speed and do any of this. So just want to make that clear. Before you could hyper and shoot at a wall, but you can no longer do that. So object pickup. So this is another big change, is that basically inherently every character can pick up a light object. So I think that's pretty cool. Allows the objects to be way more useful, and you can give all those 3 damage guys a 4 damage or 2 damage guys a 3 damage very quickly by using objects. So I think objects will definitely see more play. A lot of times we didn't play objects because you didn't want to give your super strength character across the board from you another object, but now all your guys can pick up objects, so it's definitely worth playing them. Also, you've got this new close object action attack. So this is when you're going to use an object in an attack. So you can still charge and to use them, and I guess, yeah. So if you're holding a light object and you have running shot, you can running shot and shoot, throw that object. The minimum range value is 6. So there's no more different ranges for a light and a heavy. It's just a 6 range. See, deals 2 damage if it's a light or 3 damage if it's a heavy. With a close, it's a +1 for light and +2 if it's a heavy. So I think that's pretty much the same. Got a nice little rarities guide here to help newer players to know what colors are rarities, which they didn't have before. All right, let's move into some of the improved abilities. Most of these are pretty much the same. The biggest one that I noticed that I don't know how many other people have mentioned because nobody had heard of this before, but take a look at this damage or basically improved movement through blocking and targeting through blocking. The character that moves through blocking is the same. They get to move through it, and then after the move resolves, destroy all the blocking terrain that moved through. But the big change here is take a look at destroys blocking through targeting. Once per ranged attack, so it has to be a ranged attack, the character can draw a line of fire through one piece of blocking terrain. That's it. There's no shooting through 10 blocking or 2 walls. Cosmic Spideys definitely getting nerfed here. Now there's not a lot of people who destroy blocking on targeting, but this makes it even harder. So all those barrier pieces are definitely going to get a bump here. Immediately after the attack resolve, destroy that piece of blocking. So you only get 1 destruction of blocking here. And a lot of times you're shooting from an angle, you need to destroy two. If they're playing like a map like The Office or Morlock Tunnels, it's going to be really hard to pull this off in a competitive game. Now it's going to be, characters like the SR, Joker's Wall, Green Lantern, playing two of them and just double blocking or having just one extra wall in front of you is going to make it so you can't use this ability. So that's pretty sad, I think, in some ways. I think it really nerfs it a little too strong. And I also think thematically, characters that just shoot through blocking really would be able to go through more than one block. So going in here, they've kind of combined everything into these key phrase abilities, explains some of the terminology that you see in the pack about how action total modifiers are made. But we're not going to go through all that. If you notice here, though, in flight, the flight symbol allows you all these improved movement symbols and then gives you the passenger carry of 1. So that's where you're getting that ability to carry a standard size character. If you move down in here to Giant Reach, there was a slight change here in that prior to this, Giant Reach made it, and I always thought this was a little strange, is that if you had Giant Reach and the character was in stealth, you still couldn't target them with a close combat attack, because in the old rules, I'll go ahead and read it out for you. Giant Reach says, Giant Reach, when this character makes a close attack, characters occupying a square that is within X squares and line of fire may be targeted as if they were adjacent. So that line of fire prior to this would not allow you to target somebody in stealth if you had Giant Reach, like, for example, Doc Ock, LE Doc Ock. He would have the Giant Reach, and if somebody was in stealth, it would be you couldn't target them with your flurry. But now, they've changed it so that now it says that when you make a close attack, instead of choosing an adjacent character or characters if able for the targets, you may use improved targeting, ignores hindering, and target characters within X squares and line of fire. So you don't get that improved targeting, ignore hindering, if you're adjacent, though. So you have to actually be using Giant Reach and be within 2 squares or 3 squares. So that's pretty cool. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I'm pretty sure that's how it was ruled. So scrolling down here, we've got the passenger symbol. Now this is, of course, used for vehicles. The characters can use carry ability to carry up to X characters, including characters that are the same size that don't have flight. So what they're doing here is saying that you've got basic inherent ability to carry, and then if you have a passenger, you also get to include characters that are the same size that don't have flight. Now, vehicles do get to carry characters regardless of combat value, and I think that's probably in the rules somewhere else. So we'll take a look at that later. Let me know. There is some confusion here. I feel like the carry abilities here could be a little more cleanly defined. So another thing I noticed here, so they do have protected prob, protected pulse wave, protected outwit, and basically these are the can't be countered, can't be ignored replacements. So they pretty much work the same way that you would think they work. It just keeps it so that, if you have protected pulse wave on that power, like a stop click, it can't be pulse waved, and those powers can still be used. So basically they word it that the can't be used doesn't apply to that key phrase. So slight change to RAM. They cleaned this up a little bit. Previously, if you did RAM the each hit character, the character that did the RAM would take 1 unavoidable damage for each 100 points of all hit characters combined point value. That was always a little clunky and really, just took more time to calculate. Now they're saying deal this character 1 unavoidable damage for each hit character. So it cleans it up, but makes it a little bit harder, or you're going to take more damage based on the number of characters you hit, even if there's a bunch of little characters in there. So I think in some ways that probably gets it's a boost in that if you hit like a 150 point character and another 150 point character, you're only taking 2 damage versus 3 damage. So, all right, another thing that's a slight change that you might miss is in the stop click. it's saying that if you are on this stop click and you're healed by regen or support, you get healed one less click. So this just makes it so that if you want to get past that stop click again, you're gonna heal a little bit less. I think this was a smart play. Makes it so there's a little less recurrence in the game. So with characters with stop clicks, they can't just keep healing so far past that stop click. Boost to swimmers here. You get a +1 modifier of defense against ranged attacks if you're in water terrain. I would love to see more water terrain on the maps. I'd love to see more swimmers being played. I think this is a good boost. I hope they actually give a little bit more boost to swimmers than this, but this is great. I guess the previous ability of increasing, let's see, I'm looking at the old card here for a swimmer. The old card for the swim, yeah, I guess you had the transporter is the one that gave you kind of like improved, like a +2 speed. Oh no, never mind. Sorry, you guys. I was thinking about certain map abilities. So swim ability just gives you improved movement through water. You don't have to stop. It's pretty much it for the powers and abilities card. Just want to make sure I hit everything here. Let me know what you guys think of these new powers and changes, what you think of them. If you think that there was something I missed, please do let me know. I did want to, we'll go through this later, but I did want to point out the critical hit change, which was kind of cool. I think this is great because I always thought when you critical hit and somebody had super senses and they got out of it, it was such a bummer. So now finalized attack roll is 12. It's a critical hit and all targets become hit. So now that they're saying that they become hit, they cannot be evaded. So that's great. So that means you critical hit, too bad, sorry, no super senses, you're going to take that damage. So that's pretty cool. I think that was a minor change too. So and I think that under the basic rules here, they did a good job of kind of explaining some basic things that you might need in the middle in a game if you have questions. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate everybody, all our subscribers. HeroClix is a great game, and T3 Gaming is here to provide you a good combo of casual and competitive games, as well as mechanics and strategy and advice. If there's something you want to see on this channel, please let me know. I'd like to try to make it something that you guys want to watch. So I appreciate everybody's support, and we'll see you next time on T3 Gaming.